Another recap episode of another Vikings loss. We're going to get into what went wrong on Thursday night right here on Bite Size Vikes. Welcome back, Vikings fans, to another episode of Bite Size Vikes. As always, I'm your host, John Boyd, joined by my co host, Josh Limasand. We're going to get into the nitty gritty on what went wrong against the Eagles and, just what we can take away positively moving forward to kind of overcome that 0-2 stigma. But before we get into that, Josh, how are you doing this late evening?
Oh boy, I as good as you can be in the midst of an 0-2 start. Every season starts with such promise when you're an annoyingly optimistic fan like myself, and so being 0-2 is hard to cope with. But that being said, I I think at the bare minimum, I think we left Thursday Night Football thinking that I don't know if Philly's as scary as we previously thought. So if it all comes back around and we have to square off against them in the NFC Championship game, which is what I'm fully predicting at this point, then I think we got a shot.
Yeah,
It gives me hope for the future.
I feel like we might see him again too. It doesn't feel like a terrible 0-2.
Oh,
It really doesn't. So there have been 6 fumbles in 2 games that we've lost.
Yep.
That's going to regress to the mean.
Yep.
For sure. Or progress to the mean, however you want to figure that.
Right.
But that's going to table off. That's not a sustainable rate of fumbling the football. It's going to be a certain point, and I think that'll be the case over these next several days. That's all they're going to talk about. That's all they're going to drill. Obviously, not all they're going to drill, but there's going to be such a huge point of emphasis for the coaching staff. It's got to be.
Yeah.
So I expect that to get corrected for the most part. And yeah, I mean, I feel good about it too. Like we played them really tough.
And if
It's the opposite of what people thought with the narrative for a lot of people is like, oh yeah, the Vikings made it close in garbage time. It wasn't actually that close. That's not the truth. Once it was 27-7 is at the point at which I was like, this doesn't feel like a 27-7 ball game.
No.
This is way closer.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that, last year it was like everyone was saying we were the worst 13-4 team ever. And I think that, I wouldn't say we're the best 0-2 team of all time. I'd have to really go back and look at those things. But, we're a much better team than an 0-2 record, I feel like. And, a lot of that's on us. Yeah, too many turnovers against the Bucs and the Eagles. And that's kind of set us backwards.
I'm pretty sure the Bengals started 0-2 in the Super Bowl year.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So there you go. We'll lose the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess so.
You're here first. Yep. Well, I mean, I got into a lot of it on the Thursday Night Football recap. And before we kind of delve into the minutia of the game, because there's a very obvious tipping point and some very obvious phases of the game that tip the scales. But in doing so, we're going to talk about Alexander Mattison, who has had some grotesque, negative, racist, belligerent things sent to his DMs. So whether you've seen those or not, when we discuss his play, it's simply that it's never going to be anything personal about any of these players. On a personal level, though, I don't know Alex, but I've met his dad and his cousins and spoken with them. Fantastic people.
Mhm.
Not that anyone deserves those things being said, um, but they certainly don't, and Alex certainly doesn't. If you have qualms with his play, I think that's then you
Yeah.
can have a conversation. Um, but if you've seen those things or not, go show him some love on Twitter or Instagram or whatever platform you have, and send some positivity his way
Yeah.
because you know these are regular people, these are human beings,
Yep.
and um, if there's anything you can do to try to drown that all that bullshit out, I think you should do so. So
Yeah.
um,
It's we were talking before going live, and it's mind boggling that there are people that still think this way, or think it's funny to think this way, or think it's whatever to say things like think they're entitled to say stuff like that because he's a
mhm,
professional athlete, and it's just not. There's nothing okay about that. Like you said, they're people too. Yeah, of course, and we're fans, and we as fans we contribute to why this is still a thing that people can get paid to do and make a living doing. So I think we can have opinions about our favorite team, but when you go to the personal attacks, when you call out someone's race, when you call out anything that really takes the game out of it like that, that's just the lowest of the low, and it's got to stop. It can't happen. Simply
mhm.
put.
Yep, it's the worst part of a lot of things, but it's certainly the worst part of and the ugliest part of fandom that I've seen to
Right.
this point. And I like just got done watching a video of Philly fans punching each other in the face. Um, but speaking of Philly, it was always going to be a tough game going into
Yep.
Lincoln Financial.
Yeah.
Um, the schedule gurus screw us again
Yep.
and give us the road game in week 2, and again, I think I think Madison is sort of still settling in. He only got 8 touches on
Hmm.
on Thursday night. Um, so and on those, it was just under 4 yards a carry. Um, People underrate how much scheme has to do with that. Um, the type of defensive fronts that we've seen through 2 weeks
Hmm.
are very, very good. So a lot of times there's very little nuance to these fan takes. They
Right.
see a fumble and they say, "Well, this guy cost us the game." They see the box score and say, "Well, this guy can't run the football, or these
Right.
guys can't run block, or um, the team can't run." And there's always more context than that.
Yeah.
But if we want to be taken seriously late in the year, you've got to be able to establish that run.
Yep.
You know. Um, so, at what point did you? Because I think we all were pretty excited early on, and there was a lot of momentum. At
Hmm.
what point did you kind of feel that tip back the other way, and were you kind of ready for it to get a little ugly?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I know that the DeAndre Swift stat line has been all over my feed because of fantasy points that he put up, and the fact that he got so much volume, and he got 175 yards. And I don't have a specific drive in mind, but when Philly kind of figured out that our defense wasn't as soft as it was last year, and they realized that they could just kind of we have the best offensive line in football, or one of the best offensive lines in football, and you could tell they started to lean that way. They still took some shots, but when
Mhm.
they really started to lean into just running the ball and being content with eating up so much clock, because I think it was the second quarter where if I'm yeah, so we had a drive that started at the end of the first and went into the second, um, but then we only had one other drive in the second quarter. Um,
Mhm.
and we just didn't have the ball, and that gets back to what you're talking about with the running game. Like, I'm not putting the blame on one person. I'm definitely not blaming just Madison. I'm blaming our team and the inability. Because if you look at our receiving stat lines again, we talked about it after the Bucks game. Like JJ's getting his, Hawkinson is getting his, Addison is getting his. Like, but what's the issue? Well, when we score, when we're on, we score quick. We don't sustain drives. So anyway, I got off. I'm not answering your question directly. I apologize, but
you're good.
But for me, it was I started to get the sense even before they went full on. We're going to run the ball every play. I started to get the sense that they were realizing that our defense, I didn't think played terribly. I'm not trying to knock our defense on this. And, you and I talked before the show, the pressures that we got were much better than we got last year. And Jalen Hurts looked very pedestrian for a guy who's like an MVP caliber quarterback. We made him look very middle of the road. It was just when they had a lead and they knew that they could just run the ball. It didn't matter if it looked ugly. It didn't matter if it looked boring. They were just going to do that. And we couldn't, over time, and that's what I thought about. In my head went to, okay, by the end of the game, our defenders aren't going to have us. We're not going to stand a chance if we're on the field this long. Because that's what happens with good running games and good offensive lines. You wear a team down, and then the yards per carry goes up, and the length of time on the field goes up. And so that I can't really pinpoint a point of time. Unfortunately, I can't remember back to it, but there were some before they went full on run every play mode. There were some signs that they were like, you could tell they were like, well, we're not going to really mess with this anymore. Why would we risk it when, we're going to get 5 yards of carry. We're going to be able to run for first downs on first, second, and third down. And, we're just going to keep, Cousins and Jefferson off the field basically.
Right. And, they got the field goal on the first drive. And I felt good about the defense still right there. 3 and out the next drive. The drive after that was the interception.
Yep.
And
then they missed a field goal, which teams never do against us, but they actually missed a field goal.
We fumble and give it right back to them, and then force a 3 and out. They missed the field goal.
Yep.
And then we finally get on the board with that Hawkinson touchdown. And then they kind of just decided to run the football. Yep. And then after that big drive was the touchback where we were going to come back to answer. They had just made it 10-7.
Yeah.
And I was interested in your take on that. I didn't really delve into it on the immediate recap just because those are, 15-minute episodes. I kind of lumped it in with the other fumbles, but
sure.
What are your thoughts both on kind of the, the polarizing nature of, I think, that rule a little bit now at this point, and just how big of a momentum swing that was?
It sucks. Obviously, it was the right call based on the rule that's in play right now. So there's no like attacking refs right now about this. And I'm also not going to attack Justin Jefferson because what's he trying to do? Reach for the pylon and score a touchdown. You don't want your guys to try to, mid-play, try to pull back to make sure they don't drop it and fumble it before it goes through the end zone for a touchback. Like there's no way in the bang bang in the moment play of the game where you want your players to start thinking like that. So he had his heart set on a touchdown. So I don't fault JJ obviously for that. And it's funny because you see some of the still frames where his arm is going across. And if you don't see the replay where it's he clearly bobbles and loses possession, you're thinking the ball crossed the plane, it's a touchdown. And so I needed to see that a few times to confirm. So I was like, wait a second, why aren't we talking touchdown here? That ball crossed the plane. But obviously, it comes loose beforehand. He doesn't have possession, and then it's fumbled out that way. I would like to see a rule change there. I don't know what that rule looks like. It's hard to.
I almost feel like it should be a touchback, but the same team keeps possession. Like the ball goes to the 20.
Oh, I see you. Like we'd go back to our own 20. It's like you have to reset your drive basically.
Either that or or the opposing 20. Whatever makes the most sense. It feels like a weird way to turn the ball over, though, when it's
Right.
not recovered by the defense. It's just kind of a weird
Well,
rule. And,
and
it feels, I don't want to nitpick it just because it happened to the Vikings. It feels like the Vikingest thing ever
yeah,
to for that to happen.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it just kind of makes you think about that particular
yeah.
rule a little bit, and you're like, oh, that is a little weird. It
Well, and
doesn't really seem to be.
we've seen it happen to other teams before, and I've never, I don't get passionate about it when it happens to other teams, but I still am always like, ooh, that's kind of unlucky, or it's kind of
Yeah.
lucky for the other team. Like it doesn't. There's something about it that doesn't feel right. I think that's what I would say about it, and so I don't know how to
Yeah.
fix it. I think the thing that makes it weird too is like usually a turnover. Like if you look at a turnover in your own end zone, it's because you're going the wrong way, right? It seems really bizarre to me that you're going in the right direction and that's still a
Mhm.
turnover for the other team, like you said, without the other team recovering it.
It
Like,
feels like 25 to life for a misdemeanor.
yeah, yeah,
I don't, it's
yeah.
like, okay, yeah, it was a bit, you're not supposed to do that, but like, you're just taking everything I have. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. No, that's true, and it's like, and it's a huge swing because that's only going to really happen if you're close to scoring a touchdown, which means that even if you don't get in the end zone, you have a field goal attempt. And in the case of our game, it was a 10-point swing because those potential 7 points turned into 3 for Philly, and we're left empty-handed. And it really sucks because we had overcome, I think, both the fumbles at that point, the Powell fumble and the Madison fumble, and it's like we were okay. We're going to get back into it just before halftime. It's perfect, and then that happens, and it's like, like what do you do about it? I don't even know how to fix that rule. Because I obviously if he fumbles and it goes in the end zone and the Eagles recover it, then that makes sense. Is that they change of possession. I think
Mhm.
the change of possession bothers me because if it goes out at the inch line right before the pylon, it's our ball and we just fall forward into the end zone. But
Mhm.
because it crossed the plane, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how you fix it either. It's a kind of a gray area, and it's almost one of those things where it's like, you know, there's not a clear-cut solution, so it almost is like Ty going to the runner to just leave it the old way that it's just always been,
Right,
because it's not even like it's up against a
right,
hypothetical at this point. It's
right,
just like, not this, something other than this. And
right.
it's just, well, I don't know. It's
And
just
it
kind of weird.
doesn't and it doesn't happen enough, and it hasn't happened at least in my recent memory.
In
It
an
hasn't
NFC championship.
right. It hasn't happened in an insanely important game, and so there's not enough push to
Hmm.
get it really looked at.
Yeah, it's
Because
not
they're
quite a touch rule
because
thing. It's not quite a,
yeah, because
sudden death OT thing.
more people seem to be talking about the Philadelphia QB sneak, like
Oh,
they're
outlaw the sneak,
and
dude. Jesus, that was
I'm
so annoying.
I know it is super annoying and I hate it, but I'm also like, well, they have a really good offensive line and they're always in third and fourth and short, so like, but I don't like the pushing each other and the because forward progress in and of itself is a really big advantage for the offense over the defense. Like there are times
Mhm.
when offensive players get a really generous spot, even if they're planted right away by the defender and then driven back. Defender never gets the bonus there. It's always like, oh well, the nose of the ball was past the
Yeah.
defender's head when he started the tackle that sent him 3 yards back, and they get there's
Mhm.
always an advantage to the offense there, and so when you think about the whole everyone just come behind Jalen Hurts and push him through everybody. You can't
Yep.
stop. You can't stop it. So it's super frustrating to watch.
Yeah. We have to put some sanctions on it. At the very, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe, maybe it's just a thing that they're good at, and they've kind of found that need. And they also always end up in these short yardage
Right.
situations. Like it's a constant 3rd and 1, 4th and 1.
Right.
But every time they got to that situation, I was just like just I don't even know the word to describe it, but the like annoyed like anticipation of that just,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
unpreventable thing
Yeah.
that's just you can't escape it.
It's
And we don't have the bodies up front to contend with
right.
the group they have,
Right.
so it's just like, all right, yeah, I guess you're better than us here. I guess just do this. I guess that's not against the rules.
Yeah. It's kind of like it was as disappointing as when, when I was a kid, it didn't matter if it was 4th and inches or 4th and 4, but the team was going to punt the ball. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was a shift not too long ago, I feel like, where teams started realizing, like, hey, if we only need to get a yard or two, we should probably just go for it because the odds are in our favor. And then
Mm-hmm.
then that's frustrating too, because like your defense is about to get off the field, you're feeling good, at least in my mentality, because it used to be
Everybody's
fourth.
throwing this up.
Yep, exactly. And growing up, that meant it's punting time. Yes, it's our ball, But
Mm-hmm.
David Palmer's gonna get back there and run the ball back.
Yep. So that was annoying more than anything, but they're good
Yeah,
at it. Credit to
right.
them. Whatever. Um,
Must be nice to
but
have an offensive line that's consistently really, really good, huh?
yeah, exactly.
Jerks.
Um, so I mean, what do you take it away positively from this in particular as you look forward to next week and the rest of the schedule? I'll have a lot of time to sit on it and ponder things and hopefully work things out. But what are
Yeah.
your kind of week 3 keys? And
Yeah. So we talked beforehand about the preview for the Eagles game about the pass rush.
Mhm.
And I'll start by saying I thought, like I told you beforehand, I was surprised that Hunter had credit for 3 sacks. And then I remembered it was probably that one where he tackled Hurts as he was trying to make a scramble. And then he got him
Yeah.
before he got back to the line of scrimmage. But regardless, Hurts threw for less than 200 yards and he ran for less than 40. And he didn't look like he had a command of the game. He's obviously still a talented player. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback because of this one game, but we did fluster him, we did frustrate him, and we made it
Mhm.
tricky on the Philly offense. And that's why it was really painful to have the 2 fumbles in the first half, because we could have taken a 2-score lead and they would have had to go into not panic mode, but they would have had to start overthinking things. And so the biggest positive there is, first of all, Philly is still probably the cream of the crop of the NFC, and we went toe to toe. And you can say all you want about garbage time is how we got kind of within the final 1 possession scoreline, but the game was a lot closer than that. Kirk looked fantastic. JJ is still dominating everybody, even though everyone knows he's the best receiver on the field. And so there's still a ton of hope in that regard. And that was like the best team in the NFC, and we made them look, I don't know, not middle of the road. Obviously, that offensive line is elite, and Jalen Hurts can be elite at times. But I feel like we went toe to toe with them, and we didn't, like last year's week 2. It got away from us pretty quick, and and we felt, it was kind of a message sending game, and then we built back hope when we won all those close games and beat the Bills and finished 13-4. But the Philly game last year, it felt like we were a little bit outclassed. This year, it didn't feel that way. And the main
Mhm.
thing for me that's the positive is that while our defense is not perfect this year, I have hope that we can get stops. That's more than I can say about last year. It's so fun to see Flores put a bunch of different looks on the line. How many times you look up there and there's 6 guys across the ball, across from the offensive line. You don't know who's going to blitz. You don't know who's going to back up into coverage. Philly had one conversion that I was really frustrating because the guy that dropped back in coverage was DJ Wanham. And he got, it was, I can't remember if it might have been Goddard, because Goddard's catch, he had a bunch of catches.
It was a quick out to AJ Brown.
Oh, AJ Brown, that's right. And
I think AJ Brown lined up in the slot.
yeah, and Wanham drops back. He's in position, and it
Mm-hmm.
just took a sidestep for AJ Brown, and the fact that Wanham's a defensive end, thinking that, I'm in the right spot, the receiver's not going to move anymore, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was really frustrating. And so there are
Oh,
going to
nice!
be
He's running a curl. I got him. I
exactly.
got him right
Wait,
here.
he wasn't. He gets to keep moving after he
And he
curls
just
right behind me.
couldn't accelerate with him, and just scorched him to the sideline. That was a rough one too.
Yeah, because that was like a 3rd and 4, and we had the right defense in place. It was just or maybe not the right defense if your matchup is AJ Brown versus DJ Wana. But again,
Mhm.
but that was more of a zone. I think that was a zone coverage technically. It was just they didn't have. If that was 3rd and 8, he would have been fine. He would have been able to let him catch the pass and not get the first down. But it was like 3rd and 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. So, so
Mhm.
there are things like that. Like we're not going to shut people down, but the defense has been really promising, even though we gave up the big play to Devontae Smith and we gave up. We gave up some big plays and we couldn't stop the run. But against Philly's offensive line, when they have a lead, I'm not going to put that all on our defense that they were out there for so long. So that's a positive. We're getting pressures. Hunter looks like he's a game wrecker, and when Davenport gets in there on the to help out, I think we're going to have some fun up there on the defensive line. I'm trying to think if there was. I think I might be confusing games now, but there was a Mekhi Blackman rep too that went really well. I'm not sure if that was I might be thinking of week 1 now. It's blending together a little bit.
There was one early in week 1 that was good for Blackman. I didn't see a ton of them on Thursday, but I mostly just remember seeing a lot of Cam Bynum all over the ball. I'd seen a lot of Byron
Yeah.
Murphy. I don't remember Blackman
Okay.
good or bad sticking out to me, but I definitely could have missed one too.
Yeah.
I do remember one good one in week 1. He's
sure.
shown some promise, I think, for sure.
Yep.
And I liked what I saw from the Vikings secondary. I mean, the one big play, Caleb Evans got burnt by Devontae Smith on a post. On another big Devontae Smith go ball, it was like the 3rd play Theo Jackson had come in for Josh Metellus, so it was like,
yeah.
I mean, sure, I could see that, and he actually he ended up making up for it with the pick.
Yep.
But I think at full health, I have a lot of confidence in the positions that Brian Flores is going to be able to put these guys.
Yep.
They seem bought in. Like guys like Cam Bynum have been playing a lot better. Danielle Hunter's obviously, playing with a fire lit under him.
Yeah, Bynum looks decisive and he looks quick and he looks sharp and all the adjectives you want to use to a guy that, like you said, is locked in and is bought in.
Yeah. On an individual level, I think there's a lot of guys that you feel really good about. And it's just about putting one good cohesive game together. O'Connell's play calling was a lot better too, I thought.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. On the way out, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm pulling up the rest of the schedule here, and we're not going to go through it all necessarily, but it just to show you the next several games, up until we get to Green Bay, kind of Green Bay through the bye week feels a little bit more manageable. But you look at these next few games here, you host the Chargers, who we haven't seen play in week 2, but they put 34 points up on a Miami defense that's really, really talented. That's a Fangio scheme over there now with actually Fangio himself. So playing a slightly different defense, a little more similar to the one we had last year, but I think a more talented unit, and the Chargers look really good against them. So that could be a shootout, but that's a good team. At Carolina, I think you feel good about that game, but if you might be 1-3 going into hosting the Kansas City Chiefs, which is another really tough game, and then we're at the Bears, who suck, but we lose. Sometimes you lose one against the Bears.
It's a divisional game.
You never know, on the road. And then you got San Francisco on Monday night in week 7. So I don't think it's out of the you could actually be sort of happy with the Vikings' performance over each of the next 5 games and conceivably go into week 8 at Green Bay 2-5, just because you might go away from all these games saying, well, that team's just a better team than us. We played well.
Right.
The only 2 games you will probably be favored in are Carolina and Chicago.
Yep.
and those are both road games too. It's like
Yeah.
it's a tough stretch,
Yeah.
with it's one where that Tampa loss really starts to sting because that was one of the gimmies mixed in
Yep.
with all these just juggernauts.
Yeah.
That was
That's the tough part too, because I feel like the other teams in the NFC North all have a good shot at beating Tampa Bay, and so when
Mhm.
you have some of these losses, they start to hurt your tiebreaker down the road. I know it's way too early to think about conference record tiebreaker and tiebreakers and common opponents and things like that, but it's a thing.
Oh yeah, it'll add up. It'll catch up to us.
Yep. But I like our chances against the Chargers only because I feel like we have their number. I don't know if I think a shootout favors us because another positive I was going to mention is that our boy Kirk is balling again. Um, he's thrown for over 700 yards in 2 games.
Don't
He's
believe
got
the national pundits, you guys.
no.
Kirk is dealing.
He's getting pressured, and there was my favorite play of the Philly game was we converted a first down in the red zone, and it was a JJ crossing route, and it was just a perfect. It was everything that's good about our offense. It was JJ beating on a crossing route, which he's always going to do, and then the touch on Kirk's throw like hit him just over the shoulder, so he caught it, turned upfield, and it was so smooth and so crisp and so unguardable. And I think that um, like our offense can, we can make mistakes and we can be imperfect, and we really do have to figure out how to run the ball. But when our passing game is clicking, it's like almost unguardable. So it's hard.
Mhm.
It's hard. Even I know I'm an optimist and a homer, but it's also like it's hard for me to feel like we don't have a chance against some of these teams because when you see plays like that, you're like, well, no, I don't care how good your defense is. Like,
Yeah.
you're not stopping that play.
Well, I'm right there with you, brother. And yeah, and the play you're referencing too was such a good, well schemed up play from O'Connell.
For
It
sure.
was a 3-by-1 with Jefferson isolated 1-on-1 to the left side, which they do a lot. That's the same role like Odell Beckham played in the Super Bowl run. So he can run that backside dig a lot of times.
Mhm.
And they had 3 receivers to the opposite side and ran slightly deeper crossers with all of them, and it was kind of like a giant screen almost,
Yeah.
to where they made sure it was a one-on-one
Yep.
with, I think, Slay was on Jefferson. He was able to get just a little step on him. Kirk put the perfect touch on it. It was just a perfect top to bottom, I think, play call. And yeah, like I mentioned, O'Connell's play calling for me was much improved.
Yeah, for sure.
Execution was really good from guys like Kirk. I thought the way they were able to set protections was better than in the Bucks game. I think there was a lot less pressure than you might expect
Yeah.
from a team that got 70 sacks last year and did nothing but add to the pass rushing chops they have. The injuries in the secondary probably didn't help. We took advantage of that though, and you're right. Like if it gets to be a shootout with any of these teams, I don't think we're out of it. I don't think
Yeah.
we're out of it with Kansas City if it gets
Yeah.
uh, to go back and forth. So
Kirk's at just under 80% of what's the stat? That's advanced passing on target percentage. He's 79.5%. And obviously it's only after 2 games, but I looked at that. That would put him third in the league from last season's. Like there's only a couple guys at 80 or 81. Like on target percentage, 80% of the time is top tier. And so if he
and
keeps
completing over 70%.
yep.
He's nothing if not accurate.
Yep.
But there's never any nuanced take on Kirk Cousins.
No, there isn't.
It's always either something super lazy
Another
or something
primetime loss.
super right. I don't care. I don't care what the box score says. Kirk Cousins is not going to get you there. Blah, 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 blah.
You should do whole shows in your non-nuanced voice take
Yeah,
or
I
take
should.
voice. Your non-nuanced take voice. That was good.
Yeah. It was like a Colin Coward,
Oh God.
maybe mixed with something else for sure. But yeah, that stuff gets so annoying, and
Yes.
you have to know that it's in the gray. It's not, he's not a top 5 QB.
Right.
But he's not a quarterback that warrants you like singling him out as a guy who definitely can't do
Right.
certain things. Um, just because he's never been quite in a position to do so. And you can't hold him to that same standard as a guy like Mahomes, who, let's face it, Kirk has limitations that guys like that don't have, that Josh Allen's don't have, that
Right.
Justin Herbert's don't have. With his just kind of pretty average athleticism. He's not particularly shifty. Sometimes he's not a great uh, architect of the offense, setting his own protections. He's not particularly autonomous there,
Right.
you know. But he's a good soldier of the offense. He knows
Yep.
it front to back.
Yep.
Might not be super creative on the fly. He has the limitations, but
Yeah.
he's still good.
Yes. Yeah.
That's all it is. He's not, and you can say he's great. He's not elite.
Right.
He's a very, very good quarterback.
Yep.
And yeah, if the rest of the roster kind of gets up to snuff, and I think we've seen the whole team play well enough to win. It really, really comes down to boneheaded, weird mistakes.
Yep.
6 fumbles over 2 games, another
Yep.
interception, so 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
Again, it's not even oversimplifying it. 4 fumbles.
That's
I
right. Yeah.
mean, no rain,
Yeah.
no snow.
Yeah. And we gotta run the ball more. But we've talked
Yeah,
about that ad
because
nauseum.
that'll
So
open it all up. But yeah, 9. Ty Chandler also got a carry for 0 yards, and so 9 carries for the offense, 28 yards. And the Eagles, so I know Swift had a buck 75. I think
they
as a
had
team they had like 259.
259.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah.
Um, it's
And
really bad. So, but I like what we're able to do to opposing quarterbacks so far.
Yes. Yep.
Just in general. And late downs, we're winning those downs. Which is exciting. It's encouraging.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm kind of stuck in that optimist loop too.
Yep.
But it's somewhere I'd rather be than just
Yeah.
blindly
Right.
screaming for change every
Yes.
every 8 seconds. But for what it's worth, thanks everybody for tuning into Bite Size Vikes. This is our Thursday Night Football Vikings at Eagles. Vikings loss recap. You'll see a game preview for Vikings hosting the Chargers. You should be seeing that on YouTube and Spotify on Wednesday next week. Josh and I record Tuesday night. So we won't quite have the full injury picture. We should have inklings. But I'm sure we'll get you updates in the meantime. And then Josh will probably have a solo show to you. I'll have a week off here coming up for my wedding and honeymoon, and then we'll be back to it. So, Skull Vikes going into week 3.
Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope, Vikings fans.
Don't give up hope. This is a big bounce back week, and once you get past this game, all of a sudden you got a very winnable game in Carolina. You go into the Kansas City game at home with some momentum. Could make some noise. It's not over yet. I think they say 11% of teams make the playoffs after starting 0-2. But that's not 0.
That's true.
Skull to the bull.
Skull to the bull.
We'll see you next week. Thanks again, guys.
Later.